I have always been drawn to stories that blend history, folklore, and a touch of mystery. And the Queen of Connemara delivers all that and more. This documentary, led by historian E. Philip Brown, explores the life of Bina McLaughlin, a mesmerizing storyteller, singer, and local legend in County Galway, Ireland. Known for her vibrant personality and intriguing reputation, she was both loved and whispered about by her community. I watched the documentary and I genuinely loved it. It's a captivating mix of history, culture, and Irish charm. You can watch The Queen of Connemara now on 2B TV. Find the link in the description. Namaste and welcome back to another episode of The Sapient. Today we have yet another guest. Her name is Devon and I will not introduce her. She will introduce herself. Hi Devon, how are you today?
Hi, I'm doing well. How are you, Ganesh?
I'm doing awesome. So, yeah, could you introduce yourself?
Sure. I am an evidential psychic medium and a quantum healer. So I help people to overcome trauma on energetic and spiritual levels, as well as overcome their limiting beliefs so that they can step into their power and learn to trust their intuition. I also have
Mhm.
a passion in my personal life for gardening, permaculture, and just generally making the world a better place. Cleaner, fresher,
Mhm.
purer.
And Devon, where are you based out of?
What was that?
Where are you based out of? Like, where do you live?
I live in Austin, Texas currently, but I grew up in New York.
Mhm. Okay, that's like two different
Yeah.
coasts, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I grew up on
Yeah.
the farm and the,
How big was the culture shock?
pardon me? What did you
How big was the culture shock like when you moved to Texas?
Um, I was pretty naive. I moved around the country a little bit before kind of settling here in Austin, Texas, and the culture shock was expected this time. The first time I moved from the East Coast to the West Coast, I lived in California for 13 years, and I thought it's the same country. How different can it be? And I was so shocked. It's like a completely different country and culture over
Yeah.
there. But I loved it.
Hmm.
Yeah. How about you? Where are you?
Yeah. This is like something that's, I don't think it's, sorry.
I said, how about you? Where are you from?
I'm from a city called as Bangalore, India. So it's like the Silicon Valley of India, where mostly tech people live.
Hmm.
Um, it's a very concrete, typical city.
Yeah.
It has around, the last time I checked, we had around, I think, 13 million people,
Wow.
12 or 13 million people in the city. Um, yeah, so I am like totally dead opposite to a lot of people, right? Because, you know, I live in a concrete jungle,
Hmm.
and my city is a like a 10-minute city.
Hmm. Interesting.
So yeah, it's totally different and drastic. And in some ways, we are somewhat more developed than Americans here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's the one thing that people underestimate, like, about my country, right? People think we are still underdeveloped or developing, you know, but in majority of things we are far more like technologically sophisticated actually.
Yeah.
um we have UPI is like a QR code payment. It's like cash app for your reference, right? um but it's directly from your bank, like you don't have to do wire transfers,
Hmm.
you know. Yeah, and if you could order anything, and it could you could get it delivered within like 7 minutes.
Oh.
Anything. Yeah, like anything that your heart wishes. Yeah, so we are somewhat different.
Mhm.
Anyways, um yeah, so let's talk a little bit about what you do, right?
Yeah,
So you said a lot of complicated words in the starting. Yeah, so can you simplify it, like can you boil it down to basics where people are able to understand what do you do exactly?
definitely. So, an evidential psychic medium is somebody that, so I read the energies of people and who are on this side of life in the 3D world who are alive, and I can also
Mhm,
communicate with spirits. Where the term
mhm,
evidential comes in is
mhm,
instead of saying something like, "Oh, I have your great aunt here. She says she likes your haircut."
mhm,
I would bring forward
mhm,
more evidence so that you would
mhm,
know that it's your aunt, and
mhm,
it would be like irrefutable instead of just kind of having like a popcorn uh,
mhm,
party favor type reading.
mhm.
So that way, if you walk
Yeah.
away or when you walk away from the reading, like, yes, I got that message from my aunt, my grandmother, whoever came,
Mhm,
versus
mhm,
just getting a message and being like, well, that could have been from anyone. She could have been like pulling that out of her hat or whatever it is. So it's more
mhm,
of it's a UK style of mediumship because they have a lot of
mhm,
regulations and have training requirements to become instructors in the UK versus in the States anybody
mhm.
can just wake up in the morning and say I'm a medium and then start practicing.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
and then
you know
go ahead.
yeah, I think that has happened in history, right?
Mhm.
Where somebody just woke up and said, yeah, I can talk to spirits.
Yeah, I've been encountering that a lot in the last 5 to 7 years when as people are
Mhm.
becoming more and more spiritual. They're like, I'm a medium. And I say, oh, who have you studied with? Where did you
Yeah.
study? And they're like, no, I'm just a natural medium. And I said, well,
Mhm.
honey, we all are. Every single person has the ability to
Yeah.
be a psychic or medium.
Okay, I have a weird question, I would say.
Mhm,
um how does language work? Because just to give more clarity, right, like, if you're talking to somebody who's like, let's say 50 or 60 years into in the history, right,
mhm,
to put it lightly, um or they might have come from a different region, or you know let's say their vocabulary would be different than yours, right?
mhm.
So how do you think like language works? Because I see in a lot of these documentaries, yeah, of paranormal activity, where even in India, like they're using our one main language to speak to regional spirits. I'm like, dude, that freaking soul or ghost is like a Tamilian. He doesn't know English or Hindi. But they seem to communicate. And how does that work actually?
So all mediumistic communication happens telepathically. And so it's more
Hmm.
energy communication. And when you cross over into the spirit world, you gain this vast amount of knowledge and can communicate with anybody in any language. So
Hmm.
if I pass over and for some reason my relatives are getting a reading from somebody in another country who speaks a completely different language, I would still be able to communicate through because it's all done
Hmm.
telepathically. So it's an
Hmm.
energy exchange versus, I don't have you can have what's called clairaudience, where you
Hmm.
get words that are put into your head from the spirit or the spirit world. And that's always in a language that you'll understand. But there have been readings where I have
Hmm.
gotten words in different languages or sounds of words
Hmm.
in different languages. So it can come through in both of those ways. But mostly since it's telepathic, all the information
Hmm.
comes through in the way that the medium is going to understand to convey it.
Got it. So it sounds like something that's complicated, maybe not something that my chimp or a brain can handle. um, but I'm very interested in this particular industry, or this niche, or field, because I have, it's just like any other human, right? Like, we are interested in something that's greater than us,
Mhm.
right? And this ultimate spiritual question of, is there an afterworld, right? Like, That's what literally all religions talk about.
Yeah.
Like literally every religion on the planet, right, talks about that. Fuck it, even cults talk about that,
Hmm.
right? um what's your view on it? Like what's your take or perspective on it after you have been working you know in a very different profession, let's say.
Yeah. So, I mean, I can't say for certain. I can only say what I've experienced and the spirit world has allowed me to see. And that being said, the spirit world always communicates with each person in a way that they would understand. So if I come from a Catholic background, that's the main religion in my family. So somebody who comes from different religions have different beliefs, and the
Mhm.
spirit world might communicate with them in different ways. So,
Mhm.
that being said, what I know that I've experienced and seen is
Mhm.
it's it's all love. When we cross over, no matter who you were in this life, no matter how you passed over or what happened to
Mhm.
you, you're met with love with a spirit team.
Mhm.
So we have a group of spirits that we continue to reincarnate with that, in this life my parents are my parents, but in past lives, maybe we were siblings, maybe we were friends,
Mhm.
maybe I was the parent and they were the child. So we go through
Mhm.
different role exchanges with our spirit family.
Mhm.
And basically, what I've seen is it's kind of like what you would imagine outer space to be, just this black void. And I don't mean that in a bad way, because it's filled with the most pure,
Mhm.
unconditional love that is the absolute most comforting feeling I've ever experienced.
Mhm.
And you're just surrounded by people you love in the energy of love, because that's what I've
Mhm.
been taught, that God, the universe, spirit, whatever you want to
Mhm.
call it, whatever word fits in your vernacular, is essentially unconditional love. That is like the
Mhm.
root of it, that everybody is connecting up to. If you're working with the light, that's the energy you're working with. And so
Mhm.
that is the energy we return to, and that is the energy we're born from.
Okay. The reason I asked you is because I'm a Hindu, right? So,
Mhm.
in my religion, it is taught, or it is believed that you reincarnate as other species,
Yeah.
right? Like different animals, birds, insects, and you have to go through all the species. Like there is a particular cycle that's prescribed in my religion, and you have to go through the whole cycle to become a human again. So it's like like you have to go through every yoni, or yoni is like body, let's say, right? Like the vessel for the soul. And there is a prescribed 60 like a cycle that you have to complete to become a human. And they say that the reason you become human is to get rid of this circle of life,
Mhm.
right? So you break this loop. So I understand, like everybody believes in something different and something weird, right? um because that's what it is, right? Because you cannot prove it.
Exactly. Yeah. And I agree with the Hindu philosophy. I think that we can and do reincarnate as different species.
Mhm. Yeah, because I see a lot of spiritual readers, right? Like they read into somebody's past life, and they are like, okay, in the past life you are. I'm not talking about the tarot card reader next to the stripper mall. I'm talking about people who are a little bit more established and proven, and they always say, like you were something else in the past life, right? You're not necessarily human. um So, have you ever had that experience, where you felt, okay, the person might not have been human, or anything like that?
Yeah. I just had an interesting reading for somebody the other day where they were a praying mantis. So I don't know. Yeah. I mean, you just, you get what you give when you're doing the spiritual reading. So I was like, this is
Yeah.
a thing. And thankfully we had worked together before, and, we have a rapport. And it wasn't a first time
Mm-hmm.
client that I was like, yeah, so do you have any relations to bugs? Uh, but
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, yeah, I fully believe that philosophy. I mean, my personal belief is like
Hmm.
cats and dogs, I think, are a little bit more evolved when it comes to like their heart chakra. I think they live in that
Hmm.
space a lot better than people do. Um,
Yes.
so, I mean,
Yeah.
I always hope that in my next life I come back as a house pet. But we'll see. Or a tree. I think that would be good.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you heard of this concept where a lot of biologists believe that um, the process of domestication of animals was initiated by animals, not humans?
Oh, interesting. I haven't.
Yeah, so they were like, okay, let me because like this particular species is very weird, because if you look at how humans hunt or hunted, right, in the previous era, like people would be horrified, and people are not ready for it. Right, because we do not have, to be honest, we do not have bigger nails or teeth or height advantage or speed or anything.
Mhm.
Like, if this world was a game, like human would have the most average statistics ever.
Yeah.
Right, but somehow we have survived this, and biologists believe that animals initiated this process of domestication
Hmm.
because they found out that humans were not that resourceful. Meaning, you know
Mhm.
we have always been somewhat wasteful of things, like we tend to throw away scraps and everything. And that's where they talk about like wolves and other animals
Mhm.
hanging around humans, trying to impress them.
That makes sense. I can see that.
Yeah. The reason I brought this up is I feel like they're somewhat, I would say, better equipped
Mhm.
to think long term than us.
Yeah. They, they just looked at us as like a meal ticket and stayed. That's interesting
Yes.
because when I was younger, my grandfather had a pet squirrel outside, and he would just leave some nuts and birdseed for him, and they became friends, and that was Buddy the squirrel. So, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that works actually. Yeah, because even Caesar Milan, right, the dog guy.
Yeah.
um, he says something like, humans are the only species that follow unfit leaders. Because we are
Pretty accurate.
so far removed from our internal spirituality, right? Like, we are not able to determine what's truth and what's like just a smoke screen.
Yeah.
So do you think in today's society, I would not say names, but people are suppressing their other people's spirituality in terms of just general life?
Absolutely. And I believe it's intentional because when you separate somebody from their intuition and their spiritual source, they're so much easier to manipulate.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, because thankfully we don't have TikTok here, but we got the mini cancerous version of that, like the Instagram reels, right? um, I see gadgets that women have, or even men carry, where they're having a side mirror when they're walking to check who is behind them. I'm like, could you imagine that you have amended your intuition so much that you do not know there is somebody behind you?
Yeah.
Like, could you imagine your level of instinct? At that point, you're not even human, I would say. You're not even like a biological species.
Like a mental loaf.
Right,
Yeah.
right. It's like, it's like we have put like smoke screens on our radar.
Hmm.
Like, we do not know anymore. We do not know literally anything anymore. Like, people think, when they crave food, they're hungry. Like, could you imagine that? Like, when craving food is different from being hungry, right? It's like difference between fatigue and sleep,
Yeah.
right? When you could be tired, but you could not, you'd not be sleepy.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's an attempted thing where people are trying to suppress their intuition and spirituality, right?
Hmm.
Because more and more atheists are around the world,
Yeah.
right? Yet they bow down to their bosses and corporations. Like that's the most hilarious thing ever, right?
Yep. Yeah, definitely.
um
What I what I've been seeing is, and I believe what you're saying was true. I think in the last maybe 50 years or so, that there's a huge
mhm.
upsurgence of atheism and ag- whatever the other one is, antagonistic, agonistic, agnostic. That's the one.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
now, in the last probably 5 or so years, especially since COVID started, there's a huge surge back to spirituality. And there,
Yeah.
from what I'm seeing, it seems like every religion or spiritual belief system says that
Hmm.
we're going through a shift of times. And like
Yeah.
spiritually, and looking at the astrological calendar, it's that song.
Hmm.
This is the dawning of the age of Aquarius right now.
Hmm.
And with Christianity, it's the return of Jesus. And what I believe
Hmm.
that to be is the Christ consciousness energy. And it's
Hmm.
the era that we're entering into
Hmm.
is a balance of masculine and feminine energy, whereas
Hmm.
we're currently exiting an era of predominantly masculine energy. That's why there's like the quote unquote toxic masculinity, because if there's only one type of energy, where every single one of us is made from masculine and feminine energy, and
Hmm.
we have that internal balance individualized with each and every one of us. And when you
Hmm.
take one of those out, you wind up with a toxic version of the other one.
Hmm.
So if you're operating
Yeah.
completely in your feminine, then you're not having as much action and intentionality in your life. Versus if you're
Hmm.
acting only in your masculine, then you're
Hmm.
on the go too much and you're not listening to that flow, and you don't have that balance. And so we're entering the
Hmm.
era of that flow and balance of these two energies.
Yeah. I might be a little weird one on this topic because I feel like our society has always been a matriarchal society, because women's life is placed at a higher value than a man's life. Like that's the truth. That's the boiling down point, I feel like.
Yeah.
um and you know and that's what it always has been. And whenever, like, I see people talk about toxic masculinity, right?
Yeah.
um if I ask them to define it, they cannot. That's the problem with it. It's like calling someone socialist, right? Like if you ask them what is socialist, they're like,
Yeah. And
I don't know.
I don't really like using that term toxic either, because I don't think men are inherently toxic. That might be an
Yeah.
unpopular opinion for some people, but it's
Yeah.
it's,
I mean, Devin, in today's world, it is a controversial topic to say that,
mhm,
uh, like a man is a man and a woman is a woman, at least in your country.
yeah. And
So how does it feel for you to live in this whitewashed era?
it's all I know. It's what I grew up with. It's my core values. I've traveled. I've been to different parts of the world, but it's ingrained
Hmm.
in my upbringing. Um, so I can't really speak on much much else outside of that. I love hearing people's differing perspectives, and I'm open to
Hmm.
hearing it and
Yeah.
absorbing the information.
Yeah.
But,
I feel like all of this stuff, right?
hmm.
What people used to call as gender dysphoria today does not exist. Like, how is that possible, right?
Hmm.
Imagine all of a sudden, imagine all of a sudden, doctors started calling obese people or as a different species. Just imagine that. Like, okay, you are obese, okay, that means you're like human ultra pro max, let's say,
Hmm.
right? You're a different version of human.
Yeah,
And all of a sudden in this world, obesity won't exist, right?
yeah,
I feel like that's the problem with propaganda,
hmm,
right? I feel like until until even like latest 21st century, America was the best propaganda machine in the world. And I always say that, like,
Mhm.
not Nazi Germany, guys, not Russia, not freaking North Korea, not China. The best propaganda machine ever created was United States.
Yeah. And
But they got so cocky that when other people started to run better propaganda machines, they could not keep up with it.
yeah.
And I feel like all of this stir that's coming out, right, like all of the shit that's coming up, I feel like it's all induced. It's not,
Mhm.
it's almost like it is seeded, because it's very apparent, there is a certain group of people that are really pushing for this, right? And even at the fall of Roman or Greek civilization, the thing that, what was the last thing that was brought up was sexuality.
Yeah.
Because Russians know this. I don't know whether Americans know it or not. But when you challenge basic principles of biology and philosophy, you break people.
Mhm.
Because when you believe in something, right? When you believe in something that is true, right? Right now I could say, Devin, there is a ghost behind you. You'd be like, yeah, fuck you, because you believe it to be false, right? Um, but if I could somehow prove that, there is something behind you, right? That's propaganda. And I feel like that's what people have been going through, like this whole mass castration of society's ability to think,
Mhm.
right? And I feel like the because I'm from an outside country, right? Like my opinions absolutely, amount up to zero. Because I don't vote in America, right? Like I never stepped foot on that particular land. But when you look at it from an outside perspective, it feels like it's an attempted murder of your like culture and civilization.
Yeah.
It's very apparent.
And if,
um
yeah, if you hear the speeches that the leaders, some of them elected, some of them unelected officials, they talk
mhm.
about um, they talk about that. They talk about the depopulation agenda, and
Yeah.
there's several different ways to go about that. I
Mhm.
personally believe people should live their lives in whatever way makes them feel,
Mhm.
whatever way fills their heart is the way that you should live your life. Um,
Yeah.
but I do think that there is an insane amount of propaganda here, and
Mhm.
there are a lot of similarities between the ending of the
Yeah.
Greek and Roman Empire and
Mhm.
what's going on now. I think there's a lot of biblical consistencies. I don't
Mhm.
follow religion personally, so I can't quote scripture or anything along those lines. But
Mhm.
people that I know that do follow those religions, they've shown me some pretty interesting things.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I don't know. It's just what a time to be alive.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, what a time to be alive.
Yeah.
um yeah, I mean, I love how this conversation is rolling, because it's all coming back to a circle if I really look at it as from a long term perspective. Because I have a theory about it.
Hmm.
um, and the theory is domestication of humans.
Yeah.
And I cannot prove this theory yet, because I have not done enough long term, trend search. But I understand this very innately, like it's my second nature.
Hmm.
Because I'm an Indian, and Indians are very good with mathematics. It's a stereotypical thing, but that's true. So I have always been a mathematics guy. Like if you throw even a relationship problem or an emotional problem to me, and my first tendency is to solve it with numbers,
Yeah.
right? Because that's the way, chimp brain works, right? So um and when I look at all the stuff that's happening, right, I feel like this is a mass process of domestication of humans.
Hmm.
And whenever I say this, people are like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean by domestication? Right? Like, are we animals? I'm like, exactly. And I always give one prime example, Devin. I don't know whether you have horses or not. um if you have, that's good for you. If you don't have, that's also good for you.
I do not.
Right. Yeah, so you're saving money, I would say. So, you know, just like what, like 100 years ago,
Mhm,
we rode on these horses to war, right?
mhm,
Like we wore armors of, hundreds of pounds, and like we rode on these horses. We trusted these horses to win wars, and they have done that for like probably 10 centuries, right? Now, you talk to any average horse owner today, they probably have a temperature controlled environment, right? Like a building
mhm.
for the horse. And as soon as even temperature drops by, let's say, 10-degree Fahrenheit, you know, they they put on warm blankets for the horses. I'm not saying that's bad, but if you stick with me, you'll be able to understand that we have domesticated horses to an extent where they are literally show ponies. They couldn't do shit, right? But now you compare the same horse to a horse that's in like in a Amish society, right? It's not beautiful, it's not gorgeous, but it's still wild. Like if it ran away, it could survive, because it has seen harsh things. And I feel like that's what we're doing to humans,
Yeah.
because somewhere along the way people in authority understood, okay, if we are able to domesticate anything, that particular animal becomes dependent, right? Because if you feed your cat every day and a week you're gone, there are only two chances. If it's like third or fourth generation of domesticated cats, it will die,
Yeah.
right? But if it's still a feral cat, it will like fuck you and I'm gone, right? um that's like the instinct or DNA, whatever we want to call it as.
Mhm.
And if you look at people, we are the same thing, right? Like you take away flat screens from people and ask them how many vital skills do you have,
Yep.
right? And then the conversation seems like very dangerous, right?
Mhm.
Because if you take away flat screens, there has not been much push towards skills,
Yeah.
right? Like I'm pretty sure, Devin, like your generation, or even the later generations knew how to fix things,
Mhm.
right? Like a car, like a plumbing problem, electrical problem. um Today people cannot do that,
Yeah.
right? So that means you're dependent on a system that is able to exploit you.
Mhm.
Just look at medicine for that example, or even religion,
Yep.
right? Because somehow we have come to this narrative that if you do not go to church, you're not religious.
Mhm.
And I'm like, how does that make sense? You're it's like this: if you don't go to bank, you're not rich,
Yep.
right? So yeah, what do you think about my broken propaganda theory?
I think it's completely true. If you take away all of our life skills, then
Mm,
we require a system, you know? Everybody used to have their own garden. They used to have animals in the background, whether it's chicken, goats, horses, whatever it was. Um, and we would procure most of our own food from our homes or the homes of everybody around us. And we were living in these small communities where we were all involved in one another. And now we live in communities, and here in the States, individuality is promoted. And so it's weird to
mhm.
make connections with your neighbor or, say hi to
Yeah.
them on the street. And we're all so dependent on the system that we look at the government as something that is good and needs to take care of us. But I believe that we're
Hmm.
all sovereign beings, and sovereign beings
Hmm.
don't require governance, but we can be made
Yeah.
to think that we require governance,
Hmm.
propaganda, manipulation,
Hmm.
fear, and
Yeah.
removal of our basic life skills.
Hmm. Yeah, I feel so. And I feel like in today's world, I'm sorry to go back to the same thing. Like we expect government to tell us what to do,
Mhm.
right? Like Who you to be very basic, like who you marry should not be a government's concern.
I agree.
You marry a man, a woman, a freaking cat, a wolf, or an animal, like it should not be the concern of governments. But they get to tell you who to whom you can choose as your partner,
Yeah.
right? I feel like it should not be a government's like job to tell you how to treat yourself,
Yeah, I agree.
right? But people would be surprised if they found out how many household uh, medical systems have been banned in the United States,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Because Pfizer can just pull out like $1 billion check and just corrupt the fuck out of politicians,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, I feel like, yeah, that's the thing that pushes me the most, like uh, because I always hear this thing like civilized, right? Like people are civilized, we are not animals anymore, and this is the back to back hearing that I have heard from people. They say we are not animals anymore, we are not animals anymore. I'm like, okay, dude, did you live through COVID? Like, people freaking fought in malls for toilet paper, not for food.
Yeah.
you know it's that's the truth, right? Like, people fought for bullshit, like literally.
Yeah.
um and I'm like, okay, now imagine in 1934 when there was like a 3-year famine worldwide.
Hmm.
Do you think humans are humans? No, right? Because Devin, if you're a farmer, you choose to protect your family and feed your family first.
Yeah.
And no matter, because even then governments tried to intervene, right? So they made a law against hoarding, like you cannot hoard food.
Hmm.
That should not be a government's job.
Yeah.
But they're like, we need to protect vulnerable people in cities. I'm like, no, like people can defend themselves and survive.
Yeah.
But by government putting up a law, right, government became the biggest hoarder of food,
Hmm. Yeah. And
right?
the food,
It's like,
I would say the food system that we have in America is one of the biggest dumpster fires I've ever seen. What we allow in our food in America isn't even allowed to be shipped out to other countries to be fed to livestock. And people eat it like it's okay,
yeah,
And then,
yeah.
yeah, there's this huge cycle. Our food, air, and water are poisoned. And then we're told the only way to heal ourselves is through these pharmaceutical
Hmm.
companies that were created
Hmm.
based on
Yeah.
Operation Paperclip and petrochemicals. So
Hmm.
they want us to poison ourselves
Yeah.
with medicine to fix the poison from the food and the water. And
Yeah.
they're taking away our skills. We're required to go to school from the ages of 5 to 18. And you'd think one of
To learn nothing,
right
right?
to
To learn nothing.
yeah, to learn what they want us to memorize. And you'd think that
Yeah.
if they were actually teaching us something, we would learn how to cultivate
Hmm.
food, how to
Yeah.
take care of ourselves out in the world. But no, we're
Hmm.
taught to memorize all these things. And yes, I think it's important to know how to read and to know how to do math and all of that.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
there needs to be other life skills involved. And I know when I was in
Yeah.
school, we had home ec and shop classes, but I've heard that those have
Mhm.
been taken out of the school system.
Yeah. Why would they need that though?
Yeah, exactly. Why would we need to learn how to sew, to bake,
Yeah.
to cook, to
You got Amazon.
family? Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
it's just making us dependent on all of these systems that are broken
Mhm.
and can be used
Yeah.
as reward and punishment in the future.
Hmm. Yeah. Because I work and because I'm interested in the same field, right? Like I am very bullish on food,
Mhm.
because I think that's the next big thing. I don't care about data.
Yeah,
Like, you could literally take 100 naked pictures of my data. I don't give a shit. Like, I could live in a cave, right?
yeah.
But I couldn't live without food. Like, people do not understand that. People, okay, I will put it this way. People think virtual punishment is real punishment.
Hmm.
If people get banned on TikTok, they cry. I'm like, why the fuck are you crying? You just got blocked from a cancer, right? Like something that would take your data. um, because for example right now threads, right, like threads is a new thing on Meta.
Yeah.
Did you know that threads need access to your heartbeat and motion sensors
No, I didn't.
and your eye rapid movements?
That's sketchy.
I mean, damn. Like,
Yeah.
and they're doing that to study behavior. And you could talk to any digital marketer,
Yeah.
and they would tell you, like, now technology needs to understand how you react, right? What sentiment do you produce when you look at a poster or an ad?
Hmm.
Like, did you get irritated? Was your heartbeat elevated, or did you feel happy? Like, and all of that is captured through your eye rapid movement or heartbeat, right? And we are giving them this data like very happily.
Yeah.
Right, because I get to watch a girl work for free, so I'm like, yeah, take my data, take everything I have. Right. So yeah, I'm always bullish on food. And even in India, right, the problem, I hate this, I hate to talk about this because India is a farmers country.
Hmm.
46% of Indians are farmers.
Yeah. Wow.
And and the biggest freaking thing that I hate is, like, because in every family there is a farmer.
Hmm.
It's not a speculation, it's a reality. Like, one of your brothers or sisters would be in farming. And when I talk to and train city people, they're surprised how much food they can grow in a small space.
Yeah.
Because monocrop, when all agriculture, if you just search for agriculture, the first 10 images you would find is monocropping.
Hmm.
I can bet my life on it.
Yeah.
The first 10 things you'd find is monocropping. And when I talk to them about companion, plantation, and how you can grow so much food on your own, they are surprised. They are like, okay, I did not think about this. I'm like, what the fuck do you mean you did not think about it, right?
Yeah.
Like, you come from a country where you are supposed to feed the world. um, and when I talk to Americans, I'm even further horrified.
Yeah. I could see that for us.
Yeah, I was watching a YouTube video where a kid, right? She was around, I would say, 6 or 7.
Hmm.
She thought that food was manufactured in an industry. Could you imagine being so far removed from reality?
Yeah. Yeah. There.
And yeah, and like, it's, yeah, the kid is from the same country where 46% of people think they can fight off a lion.
You can't. Yeah, I agree with you. I actually grew up on a farm, so I have that in my heritage.
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
but that there's good and bad with that. It was great because I got to grow up a lot closer to nature than most people. But the bad of
Yeah.
that is my family used conventional farming methods, which eventually led to the death of my dad. So because
Mhm.
of all the chemicals that were sprayed on the crops, he
Yeah.
developed blood cancer from it. And
Hmm.
so I like to say Monsanto poisoned my dad to death because
Hmm.
that's if that's
But did you sue them though?
what's that?
Did you sue them though? Did you take them to court for that?
He did not want that in his living years, but I would love nothing
Yeah.
more than to see the fall of conventional farming in my years. So I plan
Yeah.
on taking action on that.
Yeah. But Devin, don't make it public.
Well, they have class action
Yeah.
lawsuits.
Yeah. But don't make it public,
Yeah.
because Monsanto is just like what, like $100 billion industry,
Hmm.
a corporation.
Yeah.
So yeah, I always hate that name. It's like the Voldemort of Harry Potter, right? The one who shall not be named.
Mhm. Yeah.
They tried to pull that shit over in India also,
Hmm.
like about patented seeds.
Yep.
Uh, they took farmers to court, but thankfully Indian courts were like, "Fuck you, we are not doing that." So Indian court said that it is your response, if you have patented the seed, it is your responsible you are responsible for the safety and security of the distribution system,
Hmm.
and make sure the seeds do not reproduce. And they said if a farmer grows without your permission, fuck you, like you can't do shit on it.
Yeah.
Because they wanted to sue farmers, and it was a very high amount because they thought India was another, United States.
Hmm.
But they were so much protected by courts, and um, courts have also warned, companies, right?
Yeah.
The same company that you're talking about, the Voldemort, sorry, that you better not bring more lawsuits similar to this. Like, you cannot go after farmers in India.
Yeah. Good.
Um, but in United States, it's like, yeah, dude, why the fuck should a farmer live, right?
Yeah.
You know, and that's the scary thing, because yeah. And you were talking about chemicals, right? Like in India, Devin, could you believe people use urea or DPK, right, for farming, and they spread it in the field with their bare hands.
Oh wow.
Yeah, not even machines, like just with their bare hands they're just um, spreading it. Could you imagine the amount of diseases that our people suffer? I mean, I would say that's more worse than anything else, right?
More worse than what?
that's more more worse than anything else in ever, right? Like in the history, because it's like, there is the proverb, don't kill the hand that feeds you.
Hmm.
You're literally doing that,
Yeah.
right? You're literally killing those people who are responsible for your life.
Yeah. And then killing the people who are eating the food, because if you have to wear a hazmat suit, or if it's recommended to wear a hazmat suit to spray something on your food, then you
Yeah.
probably shouldn't be eating that food. And there's this mentality in the US that,
Mhm.
the cultural norm is that it doesn't matter and that the
Mhm.
food is
Yeah.
safe because we have all these regulatory agencies. But they don't understand that the Voldemort
Yeah.
company, and their parent
Yeah.
company, Bear,
Mhm.
paid these regulatory agencies. And
Yeah.
then there's the revolving door of careers. So you start in a government
Mhm.
agency and then you move to private where you make a ton of money. You get your experience in the
Mhm.
government and then you go to private. But is the private agency
Yeah.
going to hire somebody who tried to regulate them and, messed with their bottom line? Absolutely not. So it's just between lobbying and
Yeah.
industry funded regulatories, we don't have
Yeah.
anything that is
Mhm.
substantial in protecting us. Our government works for
Yeah.
organizations, they don't work for the people that allegedly elect them.
Yeah. Definitely, definitely. Devin, do you know who is the most successful stock trader in the world?
Stock trader,
Yeah.
as a person or just an organization?
Yeah, as a human being, as a person.
Warren Buffett.
Like, nope. So let me preface this, right? Like, not even organizations, like, hedge funds are not able to operate at that profit margin. And the best trader in the world is Nancy Pelosi.
uh, yeah.
Yeah. you know Growth of wealth by 634%. Good number, right?
Yeah, that's a lot of luck she's had.
Yes, a lot of luck and a lot of timing. And yeah, dude, just like she's the magician, I think like she has, like, Devin, if you can read people, like if you can read spirituality or souls, like she could read God, I think.
Well, I think,
Because she's just like, this shit is going to happen next.
yeah, I think it helps when you're married to somebody who isn't her husband like in the stock trend field or something, or
No, her husband's account is different. That's the thing.
okay,
you know so when I say Nancy Pelosi is the best trader in the world, it's her own personal portfolio, it's not her family's.
okay.
So they bought LPG, right, the cooking gas.
Hmm.
you know so the gas freezing technology, like people have uh, where you can freeze the natural gas, and you can export it through containers.
Okay.
She bought a shit ton of stock in that particular one company before the Nord Stream was attacked in Europe,
Hmm.
like around like 3 hours or 4 hours before.
Oh, it's
um
good timing.
and yeah, and when people looked into it, she was buying like from past like 8 to 10 days, she was continuously buying everything.
Mhm.
And that was only into one company, and it was the same company that they got the agreement, for to supply natural gas to Europe.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, luck and timing, like she's the best strategist in the world.
Yeah. I mean, the I don't just the blatant disregard for ethics is so
Yeah.
obvious at, and
Hmm.
it's kind of marvelous that some people aren't seeing that,
Yeah.
seeing what's going on. But I also think
Hmm.
that we're in a time where truth is really coming to light, and we're seeing a lot of the fallacies that are
Hmm.
happening. And also with
Yeah.
that, there's going to be people who just don't want to see the fallacies, because when you wake up to what's really
Hmm.
going on, it can be devastating at first.
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Devin, I have had like 35 episodes, right, in on my podcast, and I had around, I would say, 20 plus American guests.
Yeah.
And my sole aim is to push them to become a congressman or congresswoman.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because if you can become a congresswoman, and you can just give me like, you know key informations, Devin, we both could be rich,
Yeah.
right? um yeah, because on an average congressman who sits in any committee, right,
Mhm.
um, they tend to make around 234 or 235% return on their investments. So they are full-time stock traders, part-time congressmen,
Yeah. That's not bad.
not the other way around.
Yeah. I know we've got some problems here.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know which university did the study. They said the quickest way to become a millionaire is not to have a tech startup, it is to become a congressman. It's like the quickest way,
Yeah.
to become a millionaire. And then I think, uh, average net worth of congressmen or congresswomen, including offshore, things,
Mhm.
I think it's around 100 plus million.
Wow.
Yeah, so the amount of money, that, and like people don't understand this, even Americans, when I talk to them, that congressmen or congresswomen, like like representatives hold board positions in corporations while they are serving,
Yep.
right? And then they go on to work on these corporations.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
it's
democracy.
Yeah, allegedly. That's what they're promoting. But it
Yeah.
doesn't seem like it. I mean, I'm trying to figure out how to formulate what I want to say.
Yeah, without getting silence, right?
Yeah. Um, just in a way that we won't get kicked off any social media platforms for it. So there's
Yeah, I don't post it on social media, don't worry
oh,
about that.
okay. Okay.
Yeah, I know my Voldemorts. I'm very aware of them. I stay away from them.
All right, yeah. So is our current president's family of Voldemort?
um I would not say they're Voldemorts. I think they're just dumb
Yeah.
and just cocky. Like, I can do this shit and get away with it. Like, what are you going to do about it?
Yeah. And I mean,
I think it's just arrogance at this point of time.
it really is, because
Hmm.
they clearly do not work for the citizens. There is clearly a higher, I don't want to say higher power, because I don't believe evil has power. There's an
No, I feel like it's just high priority, right?
Yeah, yeah. There's
Yeah. So,
there's the government we see, and then there's the government that's
yeah.
behind the scenes. And
Hmm.
I I see that our current sitting president and his family, talking
Hmm.
about getting kickbacks.
Yeah.
We have his son
Yeah.
doing these
Hmm.
horrendous things,
Hmm.
literally has so many illegal activities filmed on his computer. And
Yeah.
there's known trades between
Hmm.
different countries, our
Yeah.
president's son, and then our
Hmm.
president gets 10% of whatever his son is doing.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah, I just don't
Yes.
understand how that's allowed.
I don't even understand how a man who is so fragile can be president.
Yeah, our presidents are chosen; they're not elected.
Yes, I agree on that so much.
Yeah, and
Oh my god, like,
yeah, it's like,
because um I have not seen many presidency tenures, um you know getting over before 4 years, right? Like the prescribed 4 years. I have not seen that much. I feel like even when people have done sad as shit, like they completed their tenures.
mhm,
And in India, I'm very proud of it. Like, we have had like at least like what, 5 to 6 prime ministers who did not finish their tenures. The government just fell because people were like, fuck you, dude. And that happens. Yeah, because
mhm,
in India it's like Indians are very very much like Americans, because I think we both were fucked over by the same people, right? The gingers on an island that like to play the Game of Thrones. Yeah, so people just don't like laws and rules and bureaucracy. They absolutely hate it.
mhm.
And but we have had prime ministers who lost support of people because they just got sidetracked.
Yeah,
And we have seen prime ministers resigning, in not even in India, in almost all countries, when they were caught in a scandal or a corruption thing.
mhm,
And here is Hunter Biden laptop, which is freaking Google, for the dark web.
yeah.
Right, has so many shit on it. um and nothing happened, right?
No,
As far as I'm aware, nothing happened. I mean the guy who fixed the laptop got screwed over,
mhm.
but that's all.
Yeah, he was screwed over. It
Right.
was Facebook wasn't promoting it because it was during the election season, and it would look bad on
Yeah.
Biden if that were to
Hmm.
come out.
Yeah.
We wouldn't want that,
Yeah.
obviously.
Hmm.
And you were called crazy if you said anything about it. So
Yes.
it's illegal. If you and I
Hmm.
were to go and watch anything
Yeah.
that's on his laptop, we could get arrested here.
Mhm.
But he's still
Yeah.
walking free, and his dad is still doing weekend
Yeah.
journeys in the White House.
Mhm. Yeah. Are you aware of this recent news where, I think it was FDA or some regulatory agency that did a report on COVID vaccines and why they do not work?
Mm-mm.
Like, what are the problems with that particular vaccine? And the report is like 240 pages, and it was made public, and all the 240 pages were retracted.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know which stand-up comedian said. He said, they're just environmentally aware people. You get the document, you put it back to the printer because there is nothing on it, right?
Yeah.
And the retracted document was given to congressmen, like people in power. And that's why they are pissed off, because they're like, if you do not show me what's going on, then oh my god, like there is something wrong with it.
Yeah.
uh, Devin, the last time in India we had something similar, right?
Mhm.
That there was a suspicion that we bought Rafale jets, the fighter jets from France, and there was some corruption involved in it, and that's what was the assumption. Supreme Court belted the fuck out of government, to give everything, and they made literally everything public.
Yeah.
Um, like, if you use the word retracted or like not available to public in India, yeah, it does not fly.
As it should have.
Yeah, people would show up very quickly and like prove you wrong.
Yeah.
um But I see in United States all the time when I talk to any American from any state, they're like, yeah, we do know a lot of shit.
Yeah.
You mentioned Operation Paperclip, right?
Hmm.
Like that's the primary reason why NASA is even successful today.
Yeah.
No, because without Nazis, NASA would not even be remotely sustainable, let alone successful,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, I mean, you know when I first heard that CIA tested chemicals on their own cities, have you heard of it?
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, you're not working for the people at all,
No. And they never
right?
were meant to.
Because, right, if you tested it on your enemies, I'd be like, yeah, justifiable maybe. But not on your own people, dude.
Yeah. Yeah. And I
Right?
think that shows the level of care our government has for
Yeah.
us. And I
Yes.
don't think that's exclusive to the United States. I think it's more of a
Hmm.
global issue, um,
Hmm.
with that same level of care. And
Yeah.
the COVID shot, my heart just goes out to anybody that was affected by it. And just, I mean, there's so much propaganda thrown at it, and if
Yeah.
you didn't comply with everything, you were called every single name under the book, and it was just,
Yeah.
I mean,
I really want to talk to a doctor right now. Like,
yeah.
now I'm searching for old tweets. Unfortunately, all have been deleted. I want to talk to those doctors who said COVID vaccine is a thing. I'm like, okay, like, come on now and talk
Hmm.
about vaccines, because I know I'm a 90s kid. Like, I have been probably given every freaking shot that exists in terms of vaccine, right, as a kid. But yeah, even in India, IISc, Indian Institute of Science, was saying, this is not a vaccine, this is a temporary fix. And they worked on it. And yeah, but I never remember enforcement of law, like where you had to take shots.
Yeah.
The only law that I saw in India, and even that was not enforceable, was you had to take two shots to enter, like, theaters and public spaces.
Hmm.
And a lot of states don't accept it. States were like, yeah, man, whatever, fuck you, like, like, we are suffering enough from failure of businesses. Income stream is low, people are killing themselves, so we cannot keep doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every,
And I like how my country handled back COVID.
mhm.
Devin, you have to understand that we are 1.5 billion people,
Yeah.
right? And I think 65%, or sorry, 82% of people got vaccinated in 3 days.
Wow.
Yeah, that was like the government's push, like, we have to do something.
Hmm.
um but fortunately, the company that did COVID vaccines in India, right, really suffered, because it was a government subsidized program, because they could not make money on it, right?
Yeah.
um so yeah, I mean, that whole thing is, I feel like that was just a trailer of a movie.
Hmm. Yeah.
And the government was like, boys, remember, you feel you're powerful as a common citizen, we could really fuck some shit up if we wanted,
Yep.
and you couldn't do shit about it. And that, I think, that was a statement that was made. And I think that has what made people more compliant to policies and rules,
Yeah.
right? Because even now you see in society, people walk with masks
Hmm.
that they know do not work.
Yeah. It's, I know. I remember, so shortly before COVID, both of my parents had cancer from Voldemort. And when they were going through their treatments, they were told your immune system is really suppressed. You can wear this mask, but it doesn't really do much. It's more of a placebo effect to make you feel good about yourself. And so I had that in my mind. And then when COVID happened, I was like, what are y'all doing? And I heard it explained really well that those masks don't catch the virus because the holes in the mask are too wide. It's essentially like one of us trying to walk through a barn door. There's ample space to do that. But what it does do is is it catches the moisture in our breath. So our breath moisture is caught into the mask, and all of the other smaller particles are rocketed out. So now COVID and everything is like floating on like our head level, versus if we were just breathing normally, our breath is weighted by water molecules and would sink to the ground faster. So it's enhancing the spread of the virus. But there was just
Yeah.
such an intense fear scape. And
Hmm.
again, if the fear didn't work, then they started with the shame. If you don't wear a mask, then you're insert whatever name they wanted to call you.
Yeah, you are a redneck, right? You are a conservative.
Yeah.
You vote for Trump.
Yeah. It
Yeah,
was, it was wild.
yeah. I mean, people don't understand how masks work, because masks only work when everybody masks up. Because mask is to prevent you from spreading virus. It's not the other way around.
Yeah. But it's
Like
also,
it.
yeah, there's
Yeah.
also a lot of really bad effects from wearing a mask. I think within
Oh yeah.
within a
Oh
couple
yeah.
of minutes.
Oxygen deprivation, increase in carbon monoxide presence in your lungs, increase in moisture in your lungs. I know about it. Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. Like Devin, I'm not even American, and if you ask me, I would vote Trump right now. I don't give a shit about Biden, because people thought, right, after Barack Obama, who was supposed to be a saint,
Mhm.
right, and people don't know that, like he killed the most people in his duration. um, they were like, okay, we need somebody, because Obama was too plain, he was too good, and society was like, okay, we need to have someone like Elvis as our president. So they were like, okay, let's go for Trump. And when Trump was like tweeting the shit out of everybody and everything, they were like, okay, we need a stable president, and they chose the most unstable man. And now they're realizing, okay, shit is better than shittier. And yeah, now everybody is like, yeah, I feel like, like Trump's gonna win this one, if election happens.
Yeah. Who knows? Who knows
Yeah,
what they're gonna pull?
yeah, because states are, I think, like denying ballots for him, right?
Mhm.
Like they're saying, you already choose Uncle Sam.
Yeah. What I've seen though is that's getting overturned. I know there's a
Mhm.
couple of states that the Supreme Court said you
Yeah.
can do that in, but
Mhm. Yeah, thank God for Supreme Court, right? It's not political.
yeah, I don't. It
Yeah,
kind
or
of.
is it?
I mean, it's supposed to not be, but there's nothing that's truly unbiased
Yeah,
because I mean, we all have
I mean,
our own individual personal biases, but you can't get that
yeah.
high in politics or anything
Mm.
without, um,
Also, isn't like you were judges appointed by president or something?
yeah,
Yeah, then they're definitely political.
yeah. And there was a huge issue when Trump was president that there was a Supreme Court seat that needed to get filled,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's all a dog and pony show, and
Hmm.
I just
Yeah,
sit back with my popcorn and see what happens.
yeah, yeah, and it's more entertaining for someone who's not American, because they do not have real life consequences.
Yeah.
So American politics is far more funny and entertaining for me than you, right? Because for you it has real implications.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why I always worry about that, because when I make fun of these things, I'm like, yeah, whatever, because I'm literally 12 hours away from you,
Hmm.
right? And believe it or not, India is the next super country, like super part country.
Yeah.
um, because we are one of those countries who indigenously developed nuclear weapons. So I'm like, okay, I'm in a very good spot here, right? Yeah, because if I'm pretty sure, Devin, if I lived in a smaller country, I would be 100% scared of what's happening in United States. Because every time there is a it's like, if a husband cheats on his wife, and there is an argument, he's like, look over there, fire. And that fire is like bomb and wars,
Yeah.
right? So it's like, if I was a small country in Middle East, I would be shitting myself looking at American politics right now,
Hmm.
because Middle East, gets a slap in their ass for doing nothing.
Hmm. Yeah.
They're just sitting there and boom, bombs, drones, like strikes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it's very unique situation that United States is in, right? Because
Hmm.
United States supports Israel,
Yeah.
but but supports Ukraine on the war.
Hmm.
How does it work?
The news just tells us what to believe, and if you think differently, you're wrong.
Yeah, yeah,
But as long as our government is funding both sides of every war, I think they'll be fine.
yeah, yeah.
But
Somebody was saying, like, like, the reason America hates Russia is they cannot supply weapons to them.
yeah, that would make sense. And I mean, Russia doesn't allow any GMO products in their country
Yeah,
either.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm not saying that Putin is a fantastic human
Saint.
being at all,
Yeah.
but there are some interesting choices that he's making as the leader of
Hmm.
his country. And, kind of
Yeah.
what you were saying about India is how I feel about living here in Texas, because
Hmm.
we're the only state that has it written into our agreement with the US that if it's not serving us, we can pull out. And we've kept we've kept pretty independent. So
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like Texas is one of those brothers or sister in a family who is the sane one. We're like, yeah, whenever this shit gets wild, I'm out of here.
yeah, that's not a popular opinion in the US, but I agree with it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, because liberals would like to think like California is like the most sane state ever, right? Where they were doing a study where they said that it's better to be homeless in California than to be employed.
I could see that. Yeah, there's a lot of benefits.
You, you get more benefits.
Yeah.
And now we are seeing all illegal immigrants coming to California.
Mhm.
I know Indians that are illegally there.
Yeah.
Could you imagine, Devin? Like, they are coming through Mexican border. I can show you, if you're on Instagram. I could send you like literally thousands of videos where people are like, yay, I made it to United States.
Yeah.
And they're thanking their handlers,
Mhm.
the person who's sitting in India who arranged the travel. They're like, okay, thank you so much, Devin, for arranging all this.
Don't drag me into this. I've never done that.
It's okay, you're in Texas.
Yeah, but it's
Yeah, but like, and all of them are going to California.
interesting because I mean, in Texas, that's a big issue
Yeah.
that we're hearing about here is that they have a
Mhm.
lot of immigration coming through, and
Yeah.
that's another thing where I don't think the government should be able to tell us where to live. If we want to move, if I want to
Hmm.
get up and go somewhere one day, I think that is
Yeah.
my God given right to be able to get up and go. And
Yeah, but Devin, realistically, where could you move from Texas? Like,
that's,
maybe to even Central America, maybe.
yeah, that's the question. My husband and I are trying to figure out which country would be best to live in. And
Okay, you're looking international. That's good. That's good. Yeah, because I feel like, once, like, people like Joe Rogan moved to Texas,
mhm,
they also took away somewhat of a soul of the stage, right? Because it was a secluded stage. Now it's like, you know converted political people. Like, liberals who became conservatives are like, okay, let's move to Texas.
yeah, we're getting. I think half of California is here by now. My husband and I made the pilgrimage,
Yeah.
moved from Southern California out here, but we were trying to escape
Hmm.
California. There's a
Yeah,
lot of
I mean,
policies
just the
coming through.
taxes are insane, right, in California.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think there was a study conducted where people have, in average lifetime of a Californian, with the current regulations, they're taxed around 83 percentage when you include everything. So you are literally working for the government.
Yeah.
They should give you the title of public servant. right?
Yeah.
I mean, my God. And then you look at north of your
Mhm.
country. That's a freaking dictator land.
Yeah.
Yeah, in Canada, I think in Quebec, I think they're introducing rain tax.
Rain tax? What is that? I haven't heard of that.
So it's like, have you heard of, like, there was 7 centimeter rain today, right? Like,
Mhm.
that's how they measure how much it rained. So they will measure the rain, and then they will see how big is your property and how much rain it rained on your property, and they're going to tax you on that.
On the water that fall. No, that's too much. That's.
So you had to get an umbrella, I think, for your property.
But then, doesn't that water still go on the ground? Like,
No, it would not. It would go to sewers, right? Because there is no soil in cities,
yeah.
especially in Canadian cities, where,
Mhm.
where they were saying like 2 bedroom apartments are going up of 4 million Canadian dollars.
Wow.
Yeah, that's turning into dictator land very quickly.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, food prices have gone insane there. Have you seen that?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy here too. I haven't heard much about Canada specifically, but
Yeah, because in Canada they have introduced the carbon tax.
mhm.
So every time food gets handled, you have to pay something like carbon tax, and it has almost tripled the regular prices. Just a tax.
That's insane.
It's not even the commodity price.
Yeah. And I think that goes back to being taken away from community with the land. If we were able to grow our own food, it wouldn't
Hmm.
matter what was going on in the grocery stores. Like over the last couple of years,
Yeah.
my husband and I have really switched our consumer practices to buying
Hmm.
most of our fruits, vegetables, meat, eggs, and stuff at the farmer's market because I know I
Hmm.
can drive an hour and that's my carbon footprint instead of
Yeah.
somebody in your family growing something in India, shipping it across, having it
Hmm.
come through California, and then
Yes,
shipped across
exactly.
the
Yeah.
country, and it's
Hmm.
and it's so much healthier to eat at the farmers market too. I was listening to a documentary where there's a certain enzyme in fruits and vegetables that
Hmm.
are made within
Hmm.
48 hours of it becoming ripe, and it's a cancer fighting
Yes.
enzyme. And so
Yeah.
when you're eating food that was picked within
Hmm.
the last 48, 72 hours and it's on your plate and
Hmm.
you're eating it then, it's so much
Yeah.
healthier than an apple that was picked 3 years ago that was put in a freezer covered in wax and then ripened
Hmm.
that way. Because
Yeah.
you're not getting the natural elements of the food. You're not getting the proper nutrition and even the nutrition of
Hmm.
the food. When we
Yeah.
started,
Don't talk about nutrition, Devin. Don't talk about it.
okay.
It's the shame. It's literal shame. Like,
Yeah.
my God, like, that's when I'm really like, fuck doctors, because those people don't know what the fuck they're talking about, and they will mess up humanity for that. Um, you know, in spinach, the drop of iron. Could you guess how much iron has dropped out of spinach in terms of nutrition?
Is it,
Can you guess? In, like, let's say from 1948 to 2017.
isn't it like 10 times less or something
No, it's worse.
worse than that?
Yeah, it's like 455 percentage drop.
Wow.
So it's like you almost have to eat. The last time I checked, in your metrics, I think you had to eat around 7.5 pounds of spinach to get what your forefathers caught in, like, I think in, like, 100 grams, like, I think, like, that might be like what, 2.2 to 3 ounces.
Yeah.
My God, nutrition is a joke at this point of time. It's a fun challenge whenever I talk to urban people, right, in America.
Mhm.
I challenge them, go to a big, like a general store, right, and find me one imperfect vegetable or fruit.
Yeah.
I'm waiting. And I'm not talking about those vegetables that have holes or have pests. Not that. I'm just saying one odd shaped smaller vegetable.
Yeah. They're not there.
It's almost like everything rolled out of a factory. Everything is
Hmm.
same size, same shape, same color.
Yep.
How does that happen?
Genetically modified.
Right? And the amount of food waste,
Yeah.
right, that produce by big stores. Yeah, that's a joke.
Hmm.
um, Yet we talk about diversity when it comes to humans. Have you noticed that?
What do you in like thought diversity or physical diversity?
No, just people diversity, physical diversity.
Yeah.
And that apparently only applies to humans.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I've always been, as I said, bullish on food, because because I went through the same COVID period as everybody else, right? And I realized, okay, the next superpower is food,
Mm-hmm.
because people like Walmart are actively messing it up. And I think, if I can help people equip themselves with ability to grow food on demand,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you could be pretty rebellious, right? Because imagine a city cannot protest, because if they say, okay, we are going to block food, that's it,
Yeah.
you have to comply. But imagine you being able to be self-sustained. I'm not talking about homesteading like full versions.
Mm-hmm.
You could have your corporate jobs, you could go to parties and clubs, but if you could spend, like, let's say, 20 minutes every week, and if you could get at least 10 to 15% of your nutrition source, right, from your own efforts, you become pretty confident, I would say.
Yeah. And it's,
But I also feel like that teaches people humbleness, right?
mhm. Yeah. This is
Because you realize how difficult it is, like, to to do anything.
yeah. My husband and I, we just planted our garden for the third year, and I would say
Hmm.
gardening is one of the most humbling experiences that I've had because it doesn't always work. Like one year,
Yes.
our first year, we had tomatoes for like 8 months, and we had no idea what to do with all of these tomatoes. And we planted the same kind of tomatoes next year, and I swear to you, I had two tomatoes,
Mhm.
like cherry tomatoes, the
Mhm.
tiny bite-sized ones,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's humbling. So,
Hmm. Yes. The reason for that is mycelium.
mhm,
The problem that you went through,
yeah,
that's mycelium. So are you going through the soil gardening?
going through the soil in what way?
like do you mean, do you, like, um how do you do tillage on your soil?
No,
Tilling?
no, we don't.
No.
We're trying.
Okay.
We're going the permaculture route and regenerative
Mhm.
soil, and we're letting
Yeah.
the weeds grow in the winter and just have that
Mhm.
mulch and get the root structures growing. And I was so excited.
Mhm.
We were planting our plants last year or last weekend, and I found some earthworms in our garden beds.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah, that's good.
we're getting lots of friends, but
Mhm.
it's
Yeah, you'd have to look into manure, I think, like, to get better results.
mhm.
Have you tried aquaponic or hydroponic farming?
No. I listen to a lot of podcasts with Zach Bush. Have you heard of him?
Nope.
He's a doctor who left the medical paradigm
Mhm.
because it was a shitstorm, and he has started looking into farming. Along his journey, he got into farming, and he talks about how important it is for plants to grow outside in soil
Mhm.
because you're getting
Yeah.
so many more minerals than
Mhm.
growing them inside with the hydroponics and whatnot. I know they're even
I don't think
better.
I don't think you have to grow hydroponic or aquaponic inside. You could have the system outside.
Oh, I didn't know
um,
that.
the reason I'm saying is you would be less disappointed
Okay.
if you try to incorporate it with your garden, because with soil, the thing is, soil is very inconsistent.
Hmm.
um, but if you have an aquaponic alternative structure, right, that is producing food constantly,
Okay.
you get more courage to do more experiment with soil.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have to look into that because we're definitely
Mhm.
looking to add
Because
more.
uh, yeah, see, what I tell people always is, always remember that it takes 3 years for your soil to go one +1 in pH level,
Okay.
and you have to do a lot of soil modification. Let's say if your is your soil colored black or red or brown?
It's black. We have
It's black soil, right? And does it contain a lot of small stones, or is it very fine?
it's really fine and it has cow manure in it.
Mhm.
Is the main fertilizer.
Okay, then I would say the pH is somewhere around 8.5 to 9. I am thinking about that. Yeah, around 8.5 to 9. Now, a very good range for farming is 7.5 to 9,
Hmm.
right? Now, let's say you wanted to take that 9 to 10, it will take you 3 years of work. It's not a one day process.
Yeah.
And if some asshole put chemicals into that soil, it takes you around 3 harvests for the chemical residue to go away from your food.
Yeah. No, I think we got pretty lucky. I called around to
Mhm.
everybody, asked about sourcing because there's a lot of flagrant use of the word organic. And I found a company, a gardening store out here that they only use organic soil, like true organic regenerative
Mhm.
soil from a local
Mhm.
dairy farm. But yeah,
Mhm.
calling around, I got this one company and they use the word organic everywhere on their website that there was an opportunity to. And I called and asked, I said, "Oh, what is your fertilization source?" And she said, "Oh, we use Austin's recycling. I can't remember the word right now. We have like trash bins that you like Austin compost." And I said,
Yeah,
"Okay."
yeah.
And I knew that it wasn't true organic. I knew it was organic because it had the organic
Mhm.
components to it, not the actual
Yeah.
definition of that. And I said, "Well,
Mhm.
how do you separate out the GMO compost from the organic
Mhm.
compost from people's houses?" And she's like, "Well, we don't. We
Yeah.
just use it all." And I said, "I don't think you're getting out all the chemicals from the
Mhm.
farming. If I'm putting glyphosate rinds in
Yeah.
in my compost bin, you're going to have glyphosate in your soil."
Yeah.
And it's just, you know, the word organic gets greenwashed so often, like organic products,
Mhm.
green this, green that, and people don't truly understand what it means. And
Yeah.
it's just there's a lot of tricks around that people use or companies can use to get around actually having good quality products while using all of these
Yeah.
green buzzwords.
True. Because that's why I trust vermicompost so much rather than regular compost.
Yeah.
Because we have seen in Indian universities when they did the research that um, the earthworms, like the insects, right, that are responsible for vermicompost, they they have chemical residue. They do not. They're not able to put it out in vermicompost.
Interesting.
So you could have a chemicalized food, let's say, but the vermicompost would not have that much of chemical. To be honest, even I'm not really worried about chemicals in soil.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm really not worried about it, because if you're able to introduce organic matter,
Mhm.
right, like you're doing with manure or urine or whatever it is, or like compost or whatever, like fills your boat, um, you can put all the chemicals you want. Like I don't have an issue with it. But the problem that I have is when people are like obsessed with chemicals,
Mhm.
and they see like there is no other option, and that's when I'm like, okay, you need to stop doing that, because you're destroying everything.
Yeah.
um, because I recently discovered that the regulation for organic in America also allows for usage of chemicals.
Yeah.
I'm like, how the fuck is that supposed to make sense? And that's why I see right now in India, whenever we are exporting a lot of things, they call it as natural farming
Hmm.
rather than organic,
Yeah.
because that word got fucked and it's now all natural. um and that's why, like, if you go to your local supermarket, you'll be able to see aquaponic label on it. It will say aquaponic or hydroponics.
I don't think we have that
The reason is, okay, it will come very soon.
yet. Mhm.
And there also, the reason is, you can do aquaponic or hydroponic farming with organic input.
Yeah.
So people are like, okay, less chemical residue, it's good for us. And I don't know, Devin, if you have tasted something that is from aquaponic farming. It tastes very very organic or natural, but it tastes a little bit more different.
Yeah. I'm not sure if I've had that.
Yeah, I would encourage you to just taste once, just taste a celery or something from an aquaponic system. It tastes a little bit different, but the advantage with aquaponic is it takes 40% less time to grow. It takes 80% less water.
Hmm.
So you have all the advantages. um, the reason I advocate for you know aquaponic is, as I said, it is somewhat predictable how much you're going to grow compared to soil.
Yeah. I don't know. I understand what you're saying, but I disagree about the chemicals in the soil because I think it's important to have
Mhm.
organic soil since that's where our fruits and vegetables are growing in. And
Devin, don't say that. Don't say that on record.
what do you mean?
Voldemort is listening.
Oh, okay. Well, I think it's important to have
Yeah.
soil because, um,
Mhm.
especially with root vegetables, things that grow in the soil, that absorbs what's
Yeah.
in the soil. And then also there is
Mhm.
the runoff of soil. A lot of farms are having issues where the topsoil is running off because there isn't that
Erosion.
system
Yeah.
holding it down. And
Mhm.
things get evaporated, it goes up in the air and then it continues to come down. So as we're putting these
Mhm.
Voldemort chemicals on the soil,
Mhm.
just continuing to
Yeah.
poison us in a myriad of
Mhm.
ways.
Yeah. So to my audience, guys, it's the Devin who is advocating for chemical free farming. I totally support all the chemicals. I feel like it's very good for the society and nature. So yeah, you know where to find Devin. If you have any questions, you can reach out to her about the organic farming. I don't support it at all, even though I have a company for organic farming. Yeah, I don't support it.
I thought we
Yeah, that was the declaration.
I thought we were allowed to speak freely on this.
Yes, you are.
Okay.
You are at your own risk.
At my own risk.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Like Monsanto got, and got shit on me. It's like that. I don't care about chemicals. I hate them so much. I have been involved in projects in India where we are trying to bring farmers out of chemicals.
Hmm.
Like we help farmers get rid of chemical farming, get back to organic farming, produce better, produce more at less cost.
Yeah.
Yeah. So because in India we do not have one monopoly of chemicals. Like Monsanto isn't really that big here.
Hmm.
Um, we have smaller companies, but yeah, you know people, because you had to realize, Devin, that just 50 years ago we were doing organic farming in India.
Yeah.
So it's not like a lost art. It's just that people have forgotten, and we need to remind them that, okay, chemical is not the only route. And a lot of projects have been successful in that terms,
Hmm.
where we are producing more chemical free food, and I'm very proud of it. um, Even in my own farming community, I see a lot of farmers coming out of organic, the chemical, and getting into organic, and I'm like, yep, that's good for you.
Yeah.
Not only from a food perspective, but also from a business perspective,
Hmm.
because the biggest misconception is organic farming costs you more. I'm like, no, it doesn't cost you anything if you're good with it.
Yeah.
If you have your own animals, it doesn't cost you anything.
Yeah.
You're able to produce your own fertilizers, pesticide, fungicide, whatever you want to call it as. you can manufacture on your own, and then you build a closed loop system where you're able to control everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm with you in terms of chemicals. Like, I understand what harm it has done to people, because in India around 4% of farmers kill themselves every year
Yeah.
because of chemicals, because they are pushed into a particular corner that they don't want to go to. um, yeah, so yeah, we do live in a very messed up society.
Yeah.
um, yeah. So Devin, any final words for my audience?
No, it's just a pleasure to connect with you on here, Ganesh, and to have this conversation. It's always nice to meet people who are like minded and awake to what's going on.
Mhm. Yes. um, I felt like a real connection in the conversation, where I was able to understand, where you're going in terms of your thought process. Yeah, I am not a psychic by any means, but I felt that connection, where I could see your clock ticking, like your mechanical gears grinding,
Yeah.
and that's a very rare thing that happens with me, um, because um, people like to pretend a lot.
Hmm. Yep.
um, yes, it was very nice talking to you. um, and guys, Devin is very active on Instagram, and if you are from the country of freedom, she's also active on TikTok, and the both of the links will be in the description. And yeah, Devin, plug yourself, like let people know where they can find you and talk to you.
Yeah, I would love to connect with you guys on Instagram and TikTok and talk more about organic farming, evidential psychic mediumship, or healing on the quantum levels, whatever's on your heart.
Mhm. Yes. um, so with that, guys, this is the end of the episode, and thank you so much for listening to us. I hope you take away some what of a knowledge, and it helps you in leading a better life and questioning things around you. And until the next episode, take care and thank you.